Hello. Welcome to this new video. This time we're going to be talking about OS hardening. And OS hardening is the process of making your system more secure by disabling services and applications that pose or could pose a vulnerability for you, thus making your system more secure. So there are many different ways that you could do that. You could do it manually if you know exactly what you're looking for and what to do, or you can implement security best practices. And one of those security best practices that we're going to be going over in this video is going to be Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit. Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit is a set of baseline policies that you can implement to your computer to make it more secure. And we're gonna go over that in just 1 second. Now, there are many different ways that this can be done. You could deploy it as part of your enterprise environment, but in this video, I'm going to deploy them in standalone computer that I use for testing purposes. The process is going to be similar, and I'm sure that I'm going to be creating multiple videos just to cover this topic in more details. So what you want to do, make sure that you go to the official site for Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit. I'm going to download. I'm going to click on download. Okay. And when you click on download, you're going to be presented with the different security baselines for the applications or operating systems. In my case, I am using Windows 11 um, as my operating system on this virtual environment. And as you can see, you could do that for Windows Server 2025, Windows 10, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select Windows 11 version 22H2, which is something similar to what I have installed on my computer. And for this video, because I am going to be installing them on a local computer that is not part of a domain, I need the tool that is going to be able to help me achieve that. So I'm going to install the LGPO.zip. I'm going to download these two files and then we're going to continue. So once this is downloaded, I'm going to unzip them and I'm going to configure this in a way that is going to make sense for me right now for this video. It does not necessarily mean that this is the only way that it could be done, or perhaps the best way to do it in a different environment. For this video, for demonstration purposes, this is what's going to make sense for me to demonstrate this. And you're going to get that in 1 second. So I have downloaded the zipped files and I'm going to obviously uncompress them and extract them here. And then I am going to copy some of the content from those files to another folder just to make it easy for me for the installation as I'm doing this video. This may not be the best way that you want to do this if you're going to deploy this in another type of environment. But for this video, it's going to make sense. But before we go into that, there's maybe one or two things that I want to cover here. For the security baseline, you would like to pay attention to the documentation because the documentation is going to show you what changes or configuration, I should say, are going to be implemented on your system once you apply that policies to your system. And let me bring that in here. I don't want to open that file on this VM. I don't think that I have a licensed version of Excel, but this is the same file right here. Or not, let me see. Let me come here and see if it fails, and then if not, I'll come over. So I was right. I didn't have a licensed version of Excel, but it's fine. I'm gonna be in read-only mode. So what I want to show you is this is the configuration file that's gonna show you the policy changes that are going to take place. This is just the information. You're going to have multiple tabs. Then you're going to have the security template, and you're going to have the operating systems that it is applying, as you can see down here. Then we're going to have the description. This is something super useful for you to read. What is it that is going to take place once that configuration applies to it? Then you're going to go to the advanced audit configs, same concept. Then we go to the firewall, computer, user services, and apps, and so on and so forth. Not everything that is on this template is going to be applied. Let me say that one more time. Not everything that you see here is going to apply to the baseline when you install it, meaning that some of these settings, as you could see, are applicable to different operating systems. Windows Server 2019, Windows 10. And if you read the description, it'll show you on some of them to what operating system that specific configuration setting is going to be applied to. So you do have to do your due diligence in understanding what settings are going to take place once you apply the policy. And I have to say that one more time because this is something that obviously you want to test. You don't do this like without testing, right? You have to set up a test environment, apply the baseline, and then put that system into some type of test production, install the applications, and see if users can connect to it, if that's going to be the usage for that. You want to make sure that you are not locking down the system to the point that is unusable. And you have to find your own balance between security and flexibility, right? So you have to find your own balance. So if you go through that, you are going to see the settings that are going to be applied. Now, as I mentioned before, this is something that you could do yourself if you want to, right? Some of these configuration settings tell you exactly what registry keys are going to be changed or the policy groups that are going to be applied. So you could go through this and understand if this is something that you want to do or not, and then implement it. So I'm going to close this. So what I want to do, I'm going to go back to the folder. I want to go to the GPOs because the GPOs is what's going to take place once you do the installation. As you could see, you do not have a friendly name for the GPOs here, so you don't really know which of these is going to do what. That's why you need to reference the documentation, or you have to go in through each of these and find out what's going to be applicable to them. So for this video, what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply them all, and I'm going to copy this to a different folder because I want to make my life easier. So I'm going to come here. Let me do this, and I'm gonna copy this to a new folder that I'm gonna call baseline, or it could be anything, but I'm gonna call it baseline. So new folder. And now I'm gonna paste them. The other thing that I'm gonna do, I am going to copy the tool that I need to install the GPOs to the same folder. And again, I'm doing this just to make my life easier when I'm typing the syntax. You don't have to do it if you know how to point to the path. And I know how to point to the path, I just don't want to do it like that. So I'm going to paste it in here. And there's a few more commands that I need to run from PowerShell because these policies were downloaded from the web. And as they are downloaded from the web, PowerShell is not going to be able to run them without giving me some type of warnings saying, are you sure you want to do this, or preventing me from doing that? So I'm going to open up PowerShell as an admin. Make sure that you run PowerShell as an administrator, and I'm gonna move into that folder. So it's gonna be cd colon slash users admin downloads baseline. So I'm in this directory. So what I need to make sure now is that I'm gonna be able to use LGPO, local GPO, to apply these policies on this computer. So the first thing we're gonna do is to unlock the files because this is something that we downloaded from the web. And if we don't do this, it's gonna give us a whole bunch of error messages. So let me come here, hit enter. What's going on? Hit enter. It says get child is not recognized, of course, because I'm not in PowerShell. So let me come to PowerShell and do that one more time. Okay, I'm in PowerShell now. And that took care of business. And now I'm going to set the execution policy and I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to say yes. And once I have this ready, I can proceed to applying the policies on this computer. Oh, I have to go back to my baseline folder. So now that I'm here, let me show that I can see everything. And here I have my executable plus the different policies that I'm going to apply. And the command is LGPO.exe, install everything, and I'm going to point to the directory that I'm in this case, where I have the policies. That's why I decided to put everything in one place instead of leaving that in the default directory. Because when you leave that in the default directory, there's a subdirectory, subtree that it makes it a nightmare for the syntax. So I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to be doing its magic. Now, if you pay close attention to the output of that, you're going to see that it's importing the settings for machine settings. It's importing the different configurations into your systems, right? And it's going to tell you the different settings that were implemented. Now, all this, remember, are the GPOs that I have here. If you had some loose configurations, security configurations on this system, obviously that's going to change. Some of these settings are going to take effect immediately. Others you have to either update the policy manually or reboot your computer to take place. But this is it. Now you're saying, oh my God, I didn't see anything crazy happening. Obviously, you haven't because you didn't have anything. But I remember when I did this in a different environment, I was connected to that computer via RDP on a custom port. And as soon as I implemented the policy, I got disconnected right away. So it's not that RDP is going to be disabled, because remember, you have to go through all the settings, but there are higher security standards to connect to RDP. So if I want to connect to 170.32, 192, 168, 170.32, the connection is going to be refused because there may be higher security settings for RDP than just this. The other thing is that if you had any custom inbound or even some outbound firewall rules previously, most likely those settings are going to be changed to a more secure version of that. So if I go to, let me do it right here, control panel, I usually, for my test environments, depending on what I'm doing, I disabled the firewalls, right? Well, in this case, the firewalls are enabled. I should have shown that they were disabled before, but that's what the policy changed. And there are some things that are not going to be easily accessible to you to make the changes. So I hope this video was useful. It's not that I went into great depth to explain how this security baseline works. The key for this to be successful is that you have to understand the settings that you are applying. Because if you don't, you are going to have a nightmare. So if I go back to download somewhere in here, so you have to have an idea. Let me go back to the GPOs right here. The documentation. You have to go through the documentation and read the documentation because there's no other way. Or what you could do, you can extract the settings that are applicable to you from the documentation and just do it manually, right? You could do that too. And then you could deploy and enhance the security of your system one setting at a time instead of going all nuclear by applying the baseline. Now, this security baseline, I should repeat myself one more time, it's not designed to break anything. There's a good balance here with this security baseline from Microsoft. There are other more secure baselines that you can apply. And for that, we're going to be talking about CIS at another time. But at least this is going to be good for you. This is going to give you a good security posture to have a protected system. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be bulletproof, but it's going to be good enough for you to feel safe, let's put it that way, or at least know that you are applying your due diligence. So, thanks again for watching this video. If you think that this is useful information, all I ask you to do is to click on the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and why not leave a comment in the comment sections because that also helps with the algorithm. Thanks for watching and I'll talk to you on the next video.